How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm glad you did the join thing because I had a moment where I was like, "Oh, I can't remember how to
I know, I was waiting. I didn't know how to do it
remember how to do it."
either.
Wowzers.
I just want
All
to make
right.
sure you can't hear me like that, right?
Yep,
You can?
I can hear you. I can see you perfectly.
Oh, okay. It's a little okay. It
Oh, that's good.
should be a little lower or higher. Hold on a
No,
second.
you're perfect.
Okay.
Hi, Keelan.
You sure you can hear me? All right. If it gets weird, let me know. Oh,
Oh, there's my dad. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
All right, maybe just wait one more minute and let a couple more people join, and then we will get started. Thanks everybody who's here already for joining us. So excited to be doing this tonight with Marci. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to show everybody Marci's book. This book is unbelievable. I knew that I loved Marci when I met her from the start, and then when I read her book, it blew my mind. So I'm really, really excited to have you here tonight to talk with me about disruption and all the things. So thank you so much for spending your Friday with me.
I'm excited.
So if you had to kind of just distill the essence of your book, and I know this is so incredibly hard because wow, is that book ever full of the things. How would you describe, how would you give the essence of
Yeah,
the
I
book?
guess the essence of it, my story is basically the bare bones of it is it's my story of how I was this good little girl full of confidence and high spirits, and I really had the world in front of me, and how life started systematically taking away everything and everyone that made me feel loved and safe and protected, and how after dealing with years of trauma after trauma, how I ended up going down some very dark paths and actually living a double life for several years, trying to be the perfect wife and mother while also living this other dark side. And the other part of the story is how I fought my way back and then had to deal with the damage that I had done while I was living that double life, and how I came out of that.
Yeah, and like we talked about before, there's so much in this book, and we can only kind of touch on certain things right now, but I think the essence too for me was you really embody disruption. You really embody someone who has experienced a lot of very difficult things that life can throw at you, and not only come out the other end so beautifully, but there's so many lessons and there's so much stuff there. So I wanted to ask you the first question that I'd love to ask you is, what does disruption mean to you?
It's funny how when you think of disruption, it has such a negative connotation, right? When you think of somebody who's disrupting,
Yeah.
they're interrupting the flow of things.
Yeah.
They're messing things up, and that is part of it. But I think it's so powerful and it's so empowering and it's so important and necessary that we do that we shake things up, especially when we're dealing with things that have been done a certain way for years, or things that are done a certain way because it's expected, and then people come in and say this isn't working, we're going to do something different. That's disruptive because it makes certain people uncomfortable, but it's so necessary, because often for years the same people are comfortable where the rest of us are struggling. And so I think when you disrupt something, you might mess it up for a bit, but ultimately you're creating something even more powerful.
Yeah, and aren't some of the most incredible things, they come out of disruption, if you think about.
100%.
Yeah.
Anytime you're cleaning up, things get messier first before
Yeah.
they're clean. I think a lot of people are just used to the status quo, and that makes people comfortable. But I think I'm somebody I'm not comfortable in the status quo. If I feel like I'm being locked in a box, even if it feels safe because nothing can hurt me, I'm uncomfortable with that, and I need
Yeah.
to break out of that. And I think not everyone's like that, and that's okay. But I think for those of us that are, I think disrupting things is so important.
Yeah.
For growth.
This is a great segue into the next question. Would you, like in hindsight now, would you have always thought of yourself as a disruptor?
I think I was born with a bit of a fighting spirit in me. I think when I think of my first earliest memory of disrupting, it had to have been when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old in elementary school. And that was when I had a teacher who was a bully. And he was just a horrible teacher. He yelled. He was really rough with the boys, and I hated it. And I came home from school one day and I told my parents, and my father said sarcastically, well, if you're so upset, why don't you write a petition about it? And I was like, what's a petition? And then when he told me, I'm like, I'm going to do that. And I did. I went to my room and I wrote this petition and all the things that I thought were wrong that he was doing. And I went to school and everyone signed it. And then the principal called us down to the office, the first 4 people, and it felt like an interrogation. But I remember getting a phone call that night from the teacher and from my principal, who apologized to me and to my parents. And then he did get better. And I remember thinking, I have a voice and I have a right to use it. And that came from, I believe, I had a great mom. Didn't have her long enough, unfortunately, but I had a great mom who told me that my opinions mattered, and that my thoughts mattered, and that my voice mattered. And that gave me the strength to do that. But what I've learned since that, it's interesting because now I'm seen as a bit of a rebel or a disruptor because of my book. And what I find so interesting is that one thing that I hear all the time from people who have read it is how brave I am. If there's one word that I hear a ton, it's brave. You're brave to say it. You're brave to share it. And I love that. But I also think about that for a second. I'm brave because I told the truth. I'm brave because I put it seems like a weird thing. All I did was tell my story, but I told it in a way I knew if I was going to tell my story, I was going to tell my story. I didn't clean it up. I told it in its messiness, with as dirty as it was, as unflattering as parts of it were, the parts that I was ashamed of, the scary parts, the sad parts. I told it all. And what was amazing was, instead of repelling people, like I thought maybe I'd get a lot of judgment for it, I get messages constantly from people who tell me that I say the things they wish they could say. I do the things they wish they could do. And in hearing me say that, they say I feel less alone, which has been so powerful. And all I could think of was, if in my telling my story, in all of its truth, makes people feel less alone, imagine if we all did that. Imagine if we all felt safe enough to tell the truth about ourselves, to be exactly who we are. Then not only would we feel less alone, but we would know that we're not alone. And that would be unbelievably liberating, because once you shed that, then you're free to do amazing things.
It's the fear of what people think, or what people are going to think, that holds us back from being the real us. And then when you share, people come forward. And I was going to say, there's so many things in this book that I think will resonate. Different things will resonate with different people. And absolutely, the feeling of discomfort is real when you're reading it, because it's just like, holy shit. For me, the word, just the courage to not hold anything back, not sugarcoat anything, not make it seem kind of a little bit nicer, but really just share the truth. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think it is about you that gave you the resilience to survive and thrive without a chip on your shoulder after all of these things that you've been through in your life, all of the things that life has thrown at you? One thing that always strikes me whenever I talk to you and see your post is that you're just a beacon of light and positivity and love, and you don't have any edge, which a lot of people would feel entitled to after being through a fraction of the things that you have been through in your life. So how do you not have that?
Well, I think some people would say I have a little bit of edge. Depends,
well,
how
edge.
you've come at me. Well, I think the first thing with that is, I learned a long time ago, you can't really say why me when you go through stuff, because what I learned was, why not me? Right? I learned very, very young that life doesn't wait till you're old enough to be able to accept things and deal with things. It doesn't wait. until you're prepared to deal with the tough stuff. It doesn't choose. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how perfect a person you are. Life sometimes isn't fair. So why me? Why not me? And we all go through difficult things. So I don't feel bitterness with that. I think my resilience, and I like even hearing that, because I'll tell you, I didn't feel very strong for a good chunk of my life. I sort of see it as when I was young, I was full of spirit and feistiness, and then I lost that. And I was knocked down several times and had to pull myself up so many times. And there were so many times when I thought I didn't have it in me to go forward. I didn't know if I wanted to move forward anymore. I really felt my soul was exhausted.
So what was that thing that allowed you to?
I think part of it is, again, what I've learned is because there were, at my very, very beginning of life, because I had an amazing mother and amazing older brother who I always describe my brother as being the invisible armor I wore to protect myself out in the world. And my mother was my safe place to come home to. Because I had that, it built something in me. It gave me a really strong foundation. Now I lost them quite young, and that's been devastating. But I think it secured a place in me.
It stayed in you.
That's not going to go. So even when I thought I was done, there was something in me that kept fighting.
Yeah.
I'm also a mom, and I couldn't let go. Even when I had given up on myself, I had these two people that I couldn't give up on. So that kept me going as well. But I think it's just, you get to a point, I got to a point where I think, as weird as it sounds, the more you go through, the weaker you might feel at first, but then the more you go through, the more you realize you can go. You know, when you fall down a bunch of times and you pick yourself up every time, then you realize the next time you get knocked down, wait, I've done this before.
Yeah, I can do this.
I've done this. I can do this again.
Yeah.
And then you pick yourself up again. So it's just practice. And I just wasn't ready for my story to end yet. You know, I'm like, wait a minute. It got to a point where I was like, I've been through too much. This is not the way my story is going to end.
Just at the beginning. That's what I feel like when I talk to you. You're just at the beginning.
That's how I feel too. Just getting started.
Yeah, you touch on some really intimate details of your sexual life in the book. And that was another thing. I mean, I said this before. When I've put stuff out into the world, I have trouble sometimes with letting it go and not being attached to the things that are going to happen when you let it go. So in particular, sex and sexuality and the things that make people feel uncomfortable, or those taboo, secretive things, it's there in the book. It is there. It is in living color. Two things, I guess. What was important for you to share those parts of your story? Because you easily could have written a juicy book without that massive part. There was so much, but what was it that made you feel like that was important to have?
Well, first, it's funny that you say that, because I have had people say to me, I feel like I was like in your room. I feel like I was watching things I wasn't supposed to be watching.
Which I loved. I was like,
but I think, you know what? I really am somebody who has absolutely fallen madly in love with the truth. And I feel like it took me such a long time to forgive myself. It took me such a long time to appreciate myself and to understand why I did some of the things that I did. It took me such a long time for that. I lived with so much guilt and so much shame and so much self-hatred that when I finally was able to let that go, when I was finally able to realize I did the best I could with what I had at that time, I was just trying to survive the best that I could. When I realized that, I could not have written the book and left that out, because to me, it would be doing a disservice to myself. To me, it would have felt like I was still hiding.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't want to hide. And I also didn't want anyone to feel that they could come at me and shame me with anything from my past. Anybody can come at me now and I'd say, tell what? It's in my, I literally wrote the book on it.
Yeah.
So I needed to, for myself.
It takes the power away from fear, right? When you just put it out there.
And I'll tell you something else. This is another thing that I learned. When I wrote it, what I learned was, one of the reasons why I didn't write it sooner, or one of the things that kept me in such a bad place for a while was I was so afraid of my secrets coming out, because I was so afraid of how other people would judge me. I was afraid about how it would affect me personally, how it would affect me professionally. I was so afraid of that. What I realized was I was doing that to myself. I was judging myself. I was berating myself. I was shaming myself. And I was keeping myself from my life. I was the one keeping myself from setting goals. I was the one keeping myself from attaining the goals I had set in the past. I was keeping myself from being healthy and being happy and surrounding myself with the right people. I was doing to myself all the things that I was afraid other people were going to do.
Yeah.
So once I said, I'm not doing that anymore. Once I was able to understand myself, give myself some empathy, and let it go and release it. What I found was nobody has been as judgmental or hard on me as I was to myself.
Absolutely.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And if anybody had been, and I'm sure there are going to be people who will still judge what I did. There are also going to be people who will judge that I'm talking about what I did. A lot of people feel like, don't say.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it makes people uncomfortable.
Right. But so even if that happened, because I'm so okay with everything,
yeah,
it doesn't affect me. But
Isn't
I
it
was
crazy?
being my worst bully.
Yeah. You become stuck because of what other people will think and how other people, and it's your life. And then when you realize you are the one who is actually judging yourself and holding yourself back and all of those things. And maybe that's something that I think strikes me now that I'm thinking about you, is that you have this freedom that it's like, come at me. Like all the things are out there and you're not wearing any protection because you're just like, they're out there and this is who I am. And I love the space that you've given yourself. And I feel like it gives people an invitation in the space to do the same with what's going on. And that to me is disruption, completely disruption. Absolutely. Because telling people they don't have to hide.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what's amazing to me too, is people will write me and just want to tell. I have people now who call me weekly, who it's like a counseling thing, because they just want to share. They just want to tell me things that they can't tell other people. They're not ready yet, but they know there's no judgment. And I think, again, one of the reasons why I'm so comfortable kind of putting it all out there is and not really being worried about what's going to happen, is that I've been through a lot, and a lot of people have. I'm not putting myself whatever, but once you've been through really hard stuff, I kind of feel like, what is someone going to say? I lost some of the people that I love the most, once that's gone, what somebody's going to say? What's that going to do to me? That's not going to break me. That's not going to kill me.
Yeah.
So bring it. I can handle it.
Yeah.
I've handled worse. I've handled big, bad, scary things and come out stronger. I can take it. And
that stuff doesn't define you. It's the things that you have been through and the experiences doesn't define you. It does not even the tip of who you are. Those things that you may be ashamed of. It's just part of your story. And I love how open you are about those things. And I wonder what has changed for you since the book came out.
I think it's funny because I didn't expect a lot of changes, and my sort of around me environment hasn't changed much, but I really have changed. While I was writing it, I changed in the sense that writing it helped take everything that I was feeling over the years, take it from here and in here and put it out, and I got to see it almost objectively. And I got to that's what made it easier to forgive myself for things, because I would look at it and go, oh, wait, now I know why I thought that way. And now I know why I did that. I was like, okay, of course.
Yeah.
So that was good. Releasing it was a whole other thing. But I think
can't even imagine.
It was an interesting thing. But I think the most amazing thing for me, and we've talked about it, but it's that I really feel free. I feel like I have put who I am out there, but it doesn't stop here, because now I feel free to discover more. I feel free to see what else is going to be for me. I'm constantly evolving and changing. And I feel the freedom to do that now. I feel like I can do whatever feels right for me, as long as I'm not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
I can discover a whole new things about myself. And that's very, very exciting. And I say all the time that my life choices might not make sense to everybody. And it might not make people comfortable sometimes. But if it's a choice between me being uncomfortable with my life and you being uncomfortable with my life,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd rather you be uncomfortable with my life, You'll survive.
Yes.
And that's a big, so I just feel absolutely free to be whoever I am in the process of becoming, and however that looks. And that's new.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. So were there times when you were writing where you went away and were like, like I
Oh
need
my
to
gosh,
put that down?
yes, there were times when I was writing. There are a few times, and I can remember certain lines when I was writing, and I literally lifted my hands off my keyboard and said, "Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that. Oh my God, can I say that?" And and I thought, I'll say for now. And then I did. I left it all in. But there were times, because I'm like that. Like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I love that.
So there were, but there were plenty of times when I wrote through the night. I would write until 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, because I did not want to stay in that part of my life for more than a day. I wanted to write that chapter and be done with it, because it was too hard. I mean, when you think about it, I wrote 46 years, because I think I stopped it when I 46, of 46 years worth of trauma in about 7 or 8 months. It took me to write the book. So you're really reliving every trauma in a short period of time. And that's a lot.
Well, even when you read it,
lot.
even when I was reading it, there were so many things that hit me, and I was like, whoa, I couldn't put it down, but I also wanted to put it down, because I was like, oh, I need to have a moment, because I could just feel, it feels so real, and it is so real. I mean, so it was, yeah, I wondered when you were writing, if it's just like, sometimes you're just like, I need a break from my own story.
I was like in physical pain for part of it. Like I was really feeling it. But it was the best thing. It was the best thing I ever did. I really did. I confronted all my demons and made friends with them, and then let them go.
Amazing. So when you let it go out into the world, was there any feelings of like, oh my God, I want to,
well, I still do. It's funny, because I'll still get this feeling of, if somebody who I don't really know at all, or if somebody maybe from my past, or I don't know, a teacher or somebody will message me and say, "I just got your book." There's a second of great, and then there's a minute of wait a second, like they're gonna know a lot about me, and I usually say, "You're gonna know a lot about me, so buckle up." So there is, it's for sure, it's still weird to me that people know so much about me, but again, it's liberating, because you know what? Whoever is put off by it, that's fine. I'm not for everyone. I don't want to be for everyone. And then those people can kind of distance themselves. But the other people who are like, "Oh, I get her," or "I connect with her," then I love that. And I encourage that, and I want that energy. And I want to be that person. I want to be the person who, if I went through all this and I'm still standing, or I'm still dancing, I want to project that. I lived with so much sadness and so much fear for so long. And I say all the time, I've cried enough tears in my life that now that I want to sing, and now that I want to dance, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to enjoy every second of it.
I love that so much. I feel like I would be remiss to not touch on, and I'm sure everybody who you talk to about the book will ask about the stripping part of it, which I know was a relatively small part of the entire story. But was there something that you took away from that experience that was kind of a lesson, putting yourself out there in that way? Or even sexually, when the things that you talk about in your sex life, was there anything that you took away from all of that you would say, okay, this is a positive, I may never want to do that again, but here's what I took from it?
I don't know if I learned any lessons. I will say that the dancing part of it, I don't regret. The dancing, would I have done it if I wasn't going through this trauma overload dissociation? No. But do I regret it? No. I regret the way I shared myself with people I wish I hadn't. I regret the way that I was, the town vixen, and how I put my life at risk and my health at risk with my sexuality. I regret confusing being sexual with being sexualized. I regret that. The dancing part was, look, it was insane that I would go days without sleeping so I could go from the strip club to home to change, to the gym to work out, to the grocery store, to come home, take a shower, not sleep, get my kids up and spend the entire day with my children so that I wouldn't miss a second of their lives. I don't regret the dancing. I regret what it kind of did to me, but I feel like I don't know, there was a little bit of empowerment there. And maybe it was a false sense of empowerment, but for that brief moment, you know, when I was doing that, when I was on stage or whatever, it was me owning my body. I mean, when I got off, I was renting it out, and that wasn't great. But while I was there, it was me feeling, even though I wasn't quite me, and I was in this role of Cassidy, I felt that little girl who, whenever I was upset, would dance. When my parents were fighting, I would dance. So it gave me, when my life was manic and my life was out of control, I got to dance. And
so it felt like taking a little bit of the power back.
It did. It was a temporary feeling of control, but that part I owned. So that's one thing I want to make clear too. I don't look at anyone who dances as it being anything to feel ashamed of at all. It was what that led to. It was the other stuff, that the dancing lasted a little while, and it was the double life that lasted way longer, and that was hard to recover from.
Well, and I love that you put even though the stripper part was a small part of your life, I love that you put it in there, because I think people do have an idea of what that means and who does those kind of things. And even the stuff about the double life sexually, people do have ideas of, oh, well, other people are doing that. And with that comes shame and all of the things. And you put, you know, a face to what many people are experiencing that looks just like everybody else in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think also what's really important to know is when you are talking about dancing, or you're talking about anything that's kind of been kind of taboo, but also been talked about on TV or whatever, I think it's important to know that everyone has their own story. I mean, my story, you could take a bunch of girls who were doing the same thing, but were there for different reasons. And I think the thing that is so different about my story, I guess, is that a lot of people can go through some of the things I went through, can go through loss, and can go through illness, and can go through body image issues, but very few of them end up living this double life because of it. Yeah, I didn't turn to drugs. I didn't turn to alcohol. You know, I used my body, and that's different. I say in the book, you know, normal soccer mom, when she needs money, doesn't think, oh, I'll start stripping. It's just not, maybe you'll get a job, you know, maybe you'll, you'll sell some hair, but you don't think, and that's how I went off track. And that's what sort of makes my story different, is how did that happen? Like, this was not, my nickname at camp when I was little, I had a counselor who called me the Golden Girl. You know, I was like this, because I was just this sunshiny performing whatever, and to end up where I ended up was not supposed to be part of my story, and that's what makes it unique. But I still feel like I've changed a lot over the years, but I don't feel like I've changed away from who I was. I feel like I'm back to being that little girl that was feisty.
Yeah.
And
it's all part of the story.
Powerful.
Yeah. It's all part of the story that makes you who you are. And we're all so layered, right? So what advice would you give to someone who wants to be disruptive or have disruption in their life, or, you know, be a disruptor, small or big?
You know what? I think it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be huge for it to count. I think the first step, and it's a little thing, but I also think it's huge, is saying no, is learning how to say no, is learning how to say that doesn't work for me. because I think a lot of us are people pleasers. I think a lot of us, especially as women, we don't want to be, I've been guilty. We don't want to seem like I'm always, if I'm asking for something, it's always like, I don't want to,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be a pain
Yeah.
in the ass. Like, I have to stop myself from still doing that. I don't want to be a pain. No, we have to learn how to say no. And that, just saying no sometimes, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. I'm not able to do that right now. That is giving yourself respect, and it's going to ruffle some feathers, especially if you're somebody who doesn't feel comfortable saying no.
Yeah.
But that is the first step to taking ownership of your well-being. That's the first step to empowering yourself. And then other people, again, will adjust.
Yeah.
They'll adjust.
You don't have
and
to
then
give, you don't
easier.
even have to give an explanation as
Exactly.
to no. You just
no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do agree, as women, I think there's the huge thing where it's like, oh, we don't want to be a problem. You don't want to be rude. You want to just kind of go with the flow.
I don't want to be a diva. I say all the time, I don't want to be a diva. I don't want to be, but no, you're just, if it's not working for you, if it's not okay for you, it's okay to say, it's important to say no.
Yeah.
Period.
And that in itself is disruptive.
That is right. And that's the first step. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to release a book about your about your life. That'll come later.
Would you say that if you had said no in different parts of your life, so for example, the double life and the things that were happening, I won't go too deeply into it, but the things were happening sexually in your life, would saying no have changed things, do you think?
Well, I think I say in the book that I wish that rebellious spirit in me that I had when I was a little girl had carried through for me at that time. But instead, that I did have a rebellious spirit at that time, but instead of it taking me away from the situation, it brought me further into it. Because what happened was, instead of me saying, no, that's not okay, I felt very controlled by the people in my life. And instead of me saying, that's not okay, I'm going to leave the situation, I was like, you think you can control me?
Yeah.
I'll show you what I can do. But it took me further into the madness instead of away from it. So I think it's hard to go back, because I wasn't strong enough. I had no support around me. I was not of healthy mind. I couldn't say no that way. And I needed to, for whatever reason, I needed to go through the process that I went through. I needed to experience what I experienced, as brutal as it was, as difficult as it was. I needed to do that so that now I can say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's part of your story. It's part of who you are, which is like the beauty of humans, is that we're so layered, and there's, we're multidimensional. There isn't just one thing that makes us who we are, and it doesn't define you. So the sexuality part of it and all of that, because it is a big part of where the power was given and taken away. What has changed for you in that area that feels important, as far as how you see yourself or how you sort of present? Is there anything that's changed from that? Because I would say there was probably a big part of you that reacted the way you did and did what you did at that time, going right into it, I'll show you kind of thing, that has changed for you now.
Well, that's a tough question. That's a tough question to answer. Let me think about this. Well,
I didn't prepare you for that one.
No, you did not prepare me for this. Okay. I think, well, I've always been somebody who's in touch with my sexuality. I've always been comfortable with my sexuality, pretty much. I did lose control over it. I did use it against myself for a while. As I said, I let myself be sexualized and used it as a punishment to myself. But I think, I'll tell you this, when I released the book, I remember thinking that, oh no, I'm not going to be able to post dance videos of myself anymore, because now instead of people going, oh, look at her dancing because she's happy, people will be going, oh, because she used to, and she did, and now she, like, I thought people would tie it into that. And I thought, what am I doing? No, like, I was dancing for fun before I was dancing for money.
Yeah.
But I'm still somebody in tune with my body. I'm still a sexual person, but I am, maybe it's turning 52. It's partially releasing the book. It's partially coming into my own. I have been this person for a really long time. I mean, it's all relative, but it's a pretty long time, half a century. And I am feeling more, and I think a lot of women my age start to feel a lot more empowered, a lot more in control of our bodies and our sexuality and ourselves at this point. And I feel now, I think I've made a lot of, not mistakes, missteps. I think there were things I knew about myself or thought about myself, but I didn't feel, it wasn't a shame thing. I didn't know how to explore it. I didn't know, I didn't really understand it. I kept making the same mistakes. It was pattern after pattern after pattern. And I couldn't understand myself. Why was I getting into the same kind of relationships that were really unsatisfying for me? Why would I, when I left a relationship, feel nothing, no heartbreak over anything? Why did I always feel safe when I left a relationship? Why was I never in love ever? Why? And I think for me, I had to go through, and I'm still learning about myself, but I think my sexuality I think we were put in these boxes of black and white, and I've learned that my sexuality isn't black and white. I've learned that I am somebody who, I always say, I think the love of my life is probably married to, another woman, because I was looking in the wrong direction. I think that there's a good chance that the person that's right for, I'm not somebody who believes that there's somebody for everybody. There might be, there might not be. There might be multiple people at different times in your life. I'm not a soulmate person, but I also think that, and I'm saying this, but I think that, it's very possible that I just wrote an article about this where I said, I think that the right man for me is probably a woman. So I'm exploring that aspect of myself.
I love that.
But that's the thing, is that I feel free to figure out who I am, and I don't feel tied to, I don't have to live up to anybody's expectations. I don't have to be anybody that I'm not. I'm just going with what's right for me, finally.
I love that. And it's the realization, I wish it didn't take so long for myself, and I wish there was something that you could say to your younger self, is like, you don't have to wait this long to realize that none of us fit in this weird box that's been created for us and we're told that we're supposed to fit into. And you're actually probably more normal if you don't fit into that box, because we are so, unique, every one of us.
Feel that. Yeah, and I always say, like, I felt for most of my life that I was a puzzle piece that just didn't fit into the puzzle, and I would try to smush myself into the puzzle.
Oh my God.
And then you feel like, but then when you don't fit, you feel like a failure. Like you feel like you're not, you're not measuring up. You're bad at everything because you don't fit. And then it took me till more recently to realize, I was just in the wrong puzzle. That's just not the right puzzle for me. And I don't know what that puzzle is supposed to look like. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
And maybe you're going to make your own puzzle.
Well, that's exactly.
You are making your own puzzle. And that is disruption to me as well. We are all making our own puzzle, because I felt exactly the same way. I didn't fit in. I was too many things. I wasn't enough things, all of that.
Right.
And it isn't until you're like, oh my God, I'm exactly who and where I'm supposed to be. Why the hell did it take me so long?
And maybe instead of us trying to fit ourselves into the puzzle, we keep learning and growing, and then the right pieces come to us, right? The right pieces form around us, and we don't have to struggle to fit in anywhere.
I love that. And that's one of the things I love about the universe, because that brought us into each other's lives. And I totally believe that is what happens. I'm so grateful for that. So I have one last question for you. What is something, because this book, now we know lots of things about you, but as we know, there's many, many things about people. What is one thing that people may not know about you that they'd be surprised to hear?
Something fun is that, so I was a contestant. I'm so not a pageant girl, but I was a contestant in the Golden Girl International Talent Competition. In I think it was 1999. I was like 19 or 20, and the thing is, I think I came in last. I'm pretty sure I came. No, it was really bad, and there were celebrity judges. There were
in Toronto.
It was in Toronto. It was like Sylvester Stallone's mother and brother were judges, and the prize was you got to spend a week at like their home.
The Golden Girls home.
Golden Girl International. No, the Stallone. She got to spend a week with the Stallones, apparently. And there were a bunch of like soap opera. They're like, I go into a room to audition. There's like 30 people, and then everyone kind of makes the first cut, and then you're at the thing, and they get the first 10 people get to actually perform. But what was I thinking? Like, I like to dance and whatever. I decided I was going to get serious and perform a monologue.
What was the monologue?
Oh, okay. If you're going to do a monologue, you think it would be something classic, right? No. I found, oh God, I don't know. I found some obscure piece about a girl who had like murdered her mother. I was awful. So all these girls are coming in and singing songs from Les Miserables, and I'm like performing like matricide. Like I'm like talking about murder. And I forgot it halfway through and kind of made it up. Their faces were like, what is going? Yeah, no, it wasn't a great. And I remember my mom flew in from Toronto, from Montreal. She took the train in actually and she was watching, and afterwards we just looked at each other like, what was that?
Just happened?
But it was the funniest memory. I pictures from it. It was the best. It was a really, and I heard it was all a scam anyway. So whatever.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, you're clearly going to post some of those pictures after we end this conversation. Marci, you are just a joy and a pleasure. I thank you so much for spending your Friday with me and sharing your book with the world and being a disruptor. And I look forward to seeing what you do next. And
thank
hopefully,
you for doing this. This is amazing. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks, Marci. See you later.